Hello everyone. So it is Monday today, time for a bit of jazz it would seem. But we're going to be looking at anyone name who's playing that trumpet. I'd be very impressed. We're going to look at something called scattergraphs today, which is where you take two factors that you think might sort of affect each other in some way. It's called correlation. It doesn't mean they cause each other, but it means they both happen at the same time. So tall people tend to be heavier than short people. Things like that. But before that, I've got a little starter for you. So we've got this number square here. Now, before you pause it, just listen to the rules a little bit, because the numbers from 1 to 9 all need to go into these 9 spaces. 4 and 5 and 2 and 1 have been placed for us. So we've just got to find 3, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and they're going to make these as our answers. But we do not use BIDMAS. Do not use BIDMAS. We go from left to right and we go from top to bottom when we do it. So pause it and have a little go and see if you can get there. Whilst you're doing that, just to let you know that, yeah, well done to those of you who let me know that that was a fig roll that I had the other day. Right, so if we're going to add 2 to something to get 14, that must be 12 that we're adding 2 to, and 4 times 3 makes 12, so I reckon we can put a 3 in there. 4 times 5 makes 20, and 20 take 7 is 13. 5 times something makes 270. That looks a little tricky. Let's do that one later. 7 times something divided by 1 is 56. Well, I know 7 times 8 is 56, and if you divide something by 1 it stays the same, so that must be the 8. So we've now got 3 times something and then add 8 is 35. But if you take 8 away from 35 you get 27. So 3 times what makes 27? 3 times 9 makes 27. Which means we've only got the 6 left. So I'm guessing that's got to go there. Let's double check. 5 times 9, that's 45. 45 times 6. Well, 5 times 6 is 30. And 6 times 4 is 24. So 6 times 40 is 240. Add those together, we do get 270. We've cracked it, folks. Time to get on with scatter diagrams. Right, as usual you'll find the worksheets all loaded up, so you can print them off if you like. That would certainly make this easier. If you can't, then never mind, you can sort of join in with it the way we're going, but it will be a little bit trickier. And as we've done in the past, we're not going to do all the questions today. We're going to do half of them today, another half another time. In fact, I'm going to do 3 questions today, and then there's going to be 1 question that I'm going to ask you just to upload your solutions to that, because it won't actually require any drawing. What type of correlation does the scatter graph show? Now there's 2 sorts of scatter graph, and I'm going to come back to that afterwards. There's 2 sorts of correlation we can have. It's negative and positive. Now I hope you notice that towards the left here the crosses are down on the bottom. At the right they're at the top. That means as the biology scores that these students are getting, so these are the scores that 16 students, so if I was to take here, there's a, that's 20, it's 10 squares, so that's 2 for each square, so that's 26 he must have scored in biology, but scored better 42 in physics. And generally the people have got better scores in physics and biology for some reason. Now as you go up, as you go from left to right, they're basically sort of going up. So I could draw, this is called a line of best fit, and I want to get a line going. It doesn't have to go through them all, but it needs to be going as close to as many as possible, and you want to have about the same number above the line as below. So I reckon it's probably about there. it doesn't quite go through the origin. It's very, very rare that it's going to go through the origin. It's often a mistake if it does. Let's see how many I've got below. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 below, 1 on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 above. So I'm pretty confident I've got it about right. Now, as it's going up from left to right, because they're both getting bigger at the same time, that's called a positive correlation. So that's the answer. If it was going down from left to right, that would mean people who did well in physics tended to do badly in biology, and vice versa, which would be a negative correlation because they don't agree with each other. One way you can remember if it's a negative correlation is if it's going down from left to right, that goes the same way as it would do in a capital N. If you tried to draw a capital N with it going this way, it would look like the mirror image of it. That's not right. So that is a positive correlation. Okay. Part B, another student scored 52 on their biology test. Estimate the physics score for this student. Now, estimate does not mean guess. What it means is you've got to do something mathematical to get a good estimate, which is a bit like a guess, but it's not a guess because it's an exact thing we're doing. We don't know how many this person scored at physics, but mathematically the most likely score they got we can get by, I'm going to use a different colour actually to make it clearer. Get a ruler, best if I use a pencil, but it's going to show up more if I use a pen, so I'm going to use a pen. It looks red down here, it doesn't look very red on the screen, never mind. So that keeps on going until it hits the line of best fit. Now you may be thinking my line of best fit might not have gone exactly there, and that's okay. In the exam you would be allowed a range of answers that would be about right, but what would be important is that the examiner can see you've done this and drawn a straight line up and across to see where it would be. Now I reckon that's 61 or 62, so I'm going with 61 on that. Right, question 2. Before showing it, let's make sure we've read it. Gary recorded how many goals 10 football teams scored. He also recorded how many goals they conceded. So that's how many they let in, isn't it? The information is shown on the scatter graph. So we've got 10 football teams. The football teams that are really good tend to both score goals but not concede them, don't they? You do get exciting football teams that do both, but so here we go. We've got the most goals conceded are by the team that have scored the second most amount. And the first question is, what type of correlation does the scatter graph show? Well, if I was to do what I did before and put in my line of best fit, it's going to be going something like that. It's going down from left to right, and if it's going down from left to right, that is what I said before as being in a capital N, so it's negative. The second part of this question says another team have scored 44 goals. Estimate the number of goals this team has conceded. If you've got this worksheet, pause the video now, get a ruler, or if you haven't got a ruler, at least follow straight up the lines and see what you can do. So the team have scored 44. Now scored's on this side, that's important, is it? And there are 10 little squares between each one going up 10. So that means 10 divided by 10 is 1, so each square is worth 1 goal. So 44 goals must be just there. And so I go across to there and then down, and that's pretty much bang between 39 and 40. Now I've got to go with one or the other because it doesn't make sense for it to be 39.5 goals. They couldn't have scored that, so I'm going to go with 39. Okay, question 3. I know it's small, so I'm reading it out for you. The average daytime temperature for 10 days is recorded. A shop records its ice cream sales for each of the 10 days. Now, when it's hot, you would expect to sell more ice cream, wouldn't you? So I suppose, what are we going to expect to happen? The scatter diagram shows this information. So we've got ice cream sales. More sales, the hotter it gets. What type of correlation is that showing? We're going, oh, but there's one all the way on its own over there. It seems fairly irrelevant to the rest, so I'm going to ignore that one. It's called an outlier, by the way, a freak result, and just one on its own. Now I've probably got that slightly wrong because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 above the line and only one clearly below it, but it'll still be pretty close. What type of correlation? It's going up from left to right. That means positive. One of the points is an outlier. Write down the coordinates for this point. So that's what I was just talking about. So pause the video and have a go at writing down the coordinates. Now there's 10 squares going up covering 5. So we've got 5, and they're actually called divisions, these squares. So 5 divided by 10 is 0.5. So each one is worth 0.5. So 5 0.5s is 2.5. So that's 22.5 there. And if I go across to here, that's exactly halfway between 50 and 100. 10 squares, you've got 50 divided by 10 equals 5 per square going up in terms of pounds of ice cream sales. So that must be 75. So our coordinates, remember, you go along the corridor 22.5 and up the stairs 75, and you'd have to get both of those to get the mark. On another day, the temperature was 12 degrees. Estimate the ice cream sales on this day. So pause it, have a go, and see if you agree with me. So the temperature is 12. That's 11. 12 is just there. So I'll get the ruler and go up to exactly there. And oh, I can see just reaching straight off there that is going to be bang on 100. So we're expecting to make £100 when it's 12 degrees. Now 12 degrees really isn't very hot. I would think you're doing lucky to make that much money when it's only 12 degrees. Right, now that's as many as we're going to do today. Now there is a question 4, but that's not the one I want you to have a look at. Question 5 here is what I'd like you to do, and one reason why I'm asking you to upload that is it means if you haven't been able to print it off, you can still have a go at doing this, because you can see what we've got here. It's saying about goals 10 football players have scored and the number of games they had played. And the points have been plotted accurately, but they want 2 things that are wrong with his answer. 2 things that are wrong with what he's done. He was asked to display it on a scatter graph. So those 2 things. Any ideas about that for next time would be brilliant. Thank you. Cheerio.